Good afternoon, everybody. Now, this is a big surprise. So, for those of you who are used to coming on a regular basis, firstly, congratulations for making it this far. But secondly, you'll notice two differences. So, firstly, it's not a morning session anymore. We've now moved to the sprightly time of 4 p.m. in the afternoon so that we can welcome our transatlantic friends. So, that's the first change that we've made. That's a permanent change. The second change is a temporary change, Finn, unless, of course, you really love it, and then we might get rid of James completely. But James is actually away this week. And so I am in fantastic hands. My co-host and partner today is Finn Patrick. Say hello, Finn.
Hello, everybody. Pleased to be here.
And so we've got 30 minutes to essentially grill Finn on everything to do with marketing. So Finn has over 10 years, I think, just over 10 years experience now, training and delivering transformational marketing strategies into hyper-growth startups, SMEs, but also into many Fortune 500 companies worldwide as well. Now Finn specializes in the retained recruitment world, and he is also our head of marketing for our intro. So hopefully we've done you justice with that introduction today, Finn.
Yeah, absolutely. In all honesty, I've stopped counting how many years it's been. So every time I'm asked, 10 years sounds better. It starts getting to the point where it's like, well, people are going to be able to work out how old I am if I get any kind of further. So let's stick to 10 years. It's probably a little bit more than that. But
it's like what we do with age when you sort of say, 40 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4.
yeah.
Well, we're hoping to tap into what is, I'm sure, well, as I know as well, an encyclopedic knowledge of all things marketing, but marketing from a recruitment perspective as well. I mean, I have been in recruitment now for well over 20 years. I stopped counting at 20, so I do a similar thing. Back in the day when really marketing was very traditional, it was very archaic. I mean, it's really come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. But I do think that a lot of recruitment businesses, they don't really know where to start, particularly if they're having to try and do their marketing themselves. So I wanted to start off really with, I suppose, just placing it by when we talk about marketing for a recruitment business, Finn, what do we mean? What does that actually mean for a recruitment business, do you think?
Well, I think the most important thing is how do we get in front of the right prospects and so forth. So that's the kind of front side of it. But then at the same time, it's how do we market to the best clients? How do we showcase the best clients so that employers will keep continuing to work with us and so forth. So it's a kind of two-pronged thing with recruitment. And that's what I like so much about it. It's such a complex niche for our American friends. And that's what I really, really enjoy about it, because with there being so much kind of ground to navigate, so much uncertainty there, it essentially leaves lots of opportunities open. So that's what's so exciting about it right now.
Absolutely. And a lot of ground to cover, I suppose, when it comes to marketing. I suppose one of the first things that would be great to cover is sort of transformational marketing, really, or how you can really differentiate yourself in a market that's actually hugely competitive and relatively saturated. So the likes of Apple, Airbnb, Uber, for example, they're brilliant stories, really, aren't they, in terms of how you could use marketing to kind of revolutionize yourself within quite highly competitive industries.
Yeah, well, it's interesting with those kind of companies, we all know and love them, right? But we don't understand the simplistic thing that they've done, right? They haven't come from markets where there's little competition. They haven't come from markets that aren't already kind of capitalized on by somebody else, where somebody else owns a monopoly and so forth, right? So what is it they've done? And it really kind of brings us into we speak about differentiation a lot. Okay, so what makes them different, right? And it really isn't enough just to be different these days, right? Like everybody talks about in recruitment, we're different. Okay, nobody really cares who's different and so forth, right? So the kind of underlying thing is the how to when you are position yourself to be different, how do you make yourself more relevant to somebody in particular, right? Because it's all about relevance, right? When you make yourself different, you can either become abstract or you can become more relevant to somebody specifically. Okay. When it comes to the likes of Airbnb, Uber, and even Apple, for example, they haven't differentiated themselves based on their niche, right? Which used to be the old fashioned way of, if you're going to specialize in a market, you would say, well, I specialize in the recruitment niche, right? Well, that's not enough anymore, right? Retained recruitment, that again is getting more specific, right? So there's kind of three areas of differentiation. This is the easiest way I've found to explain it, is you can either differentiate using your market. Okay, so that would say, I'm in recruitment versus a different market. Okay, or your message. So what you say about yourself, you can make that different in conjunction with what your competitors are doing. Okay, so what you say about yourself is different. But the one that really has launched these kind of, or skyrocketed these companies into becoming, worldwide known names is the method, the way in which they do it, right? And that's really what iIntro is about as well. That's why I really enjoy working with iIntro, is because we're really changing the way that people recruit, and it's done on a very professional level, right? As opposed to, we'll make it up as we go along, and hopefully we get lucky, which is the kind of traditional recruitment route and so forth, right? So I'm very much into, how do we make a service more professional on the front end, right? And what I mean by that is not just professional once somebody's paid us money to do something, but how can we make it look more professional on the front end so people have confidence when they give us money, right? Because that makes all the difference, okay? And that's what Uber, Airbnb have done, is they've made it so much more convenient to do something that everybody needs to do, right? They've removed the headaches, they've streamlined the process, and that essentially is what iIntro has done for experienced recruiters, okay? That's what we want to encourage our partners and clients to do as well, okay, is to showcase and demonstrate the level of professionalism they have up front before they even speak about working together with a client, right? And that is why when you have a service on the back end that is at such a premium professional level, you can very quickly convert people who were perhaps uncertain before or skeptical, right? Because let's face it, within recruitment, it's very similar to lots of consulting industries, is people have been burned before, right?
Mm.
And they've been burned by over-promising and under-delivering, right? What Uber and Airbnb and what iIntro are doing as well is that we're putting the delivery first, right? We're showing people how we deliver what it is that we do, and that wins the confidence, right? Because when you have something that's so streamlined and something that is all the steps in the right order, what happens is your results become consistent, right? And that's the biggest thing that's missing from the puzzle for a lot of people, is a lot of people have inconsistent results and they scratch their head wondering why. And it's because they're trying to serve clients of all shapes and sizes in lots of different ways. And they're trying to do it in a way that is more probably ad hoc for each client. So they work with each client that they work with in a different way.
Mm.
Okay. The challenge with that is that you're basically trying to create a new business every time you work with somebody, which has a lot of pressure on your resources, and also challenges how much you can actually do, right? So by flipping on the head, going for this more transformational model, so rather than just providing information, right? So it's the same in recruitment world as it is in the marketing world. People don't want information, right? They want transformation. They want less steps to get to where it is that they want to be, right? That's what people want, because all the information is available on the internet. Somebody could try and recruit somebody themselves in-house without using a recruiter. That is entirely possible, okay? But the level of risk goes up exponentially. And essentially, when you work with a premium partner, what happens is that level of risk is reduced somewhat, okay? Especially when you can produce consistent results over and over again. And that's what it is that we're about. And that's why we're here today to speak about retained recruitment specifically, because it's not about earning the bigger fees up front. It's not just about working on a retained basis. It's about delivering something, right? And the only way you can actually deliver it is by doing it on a retained basis. That's why it makes sense.
Yeah. Do you know, I think you've made some really great points there. We when we do, so we run a 30-day boot camp for all the iIntro clients who come on board, and a really big part of that is about mindset change, not just for clients and candidates, but also for recruiters as well. So thinking about everything you've just said, and then thinking, okay, does that deliver? Or when you're approaching a client, what do they say? What do you say, and what does a client hear? Because sometimes those are two different things. And we can talk all day long about the features of our service, and we're niche, and we've got a large database, and we're different. But actually, at the end of the day, does that promise that value to that client? Is it a promise of value, a true value proposition? Then probably not actually. So from a marketing point of view, then you think it's important that recruiters are quite transparent with what they do and how they do it, so that we can I suppose show our clients what value we propose to deliver in advance. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, as well, is when you are transparent, there's less to kind of remember in terms of what have I said versus what can I actually do, right? So when you can really nail down a service, which is something that you're confident in, and this is the thing, is people don't buy your service. They don't buy retained recruitment. They buy your confidence in delivering what it is that they want, right?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental thing. Nobody jumps and goes, I really want a retained recruiter, right? Or I really want to give you a retained assignment, okay?
Mm.
What they do want to do is to be able to impart or pay money for a service where they have peace of mind, right? And we speak about, today, how to become the Porsche of the recruitment industry, right? It's very similar when you buy a car, right? We buy warranties, for example, to make sure that we don't have this nasty bill that shows up because of something that's unforeseen has gone wrong. It's exactly the same in recruitment, right? Somebody can leave prematurely, and that's a huge cost to the business, right? Now, there are ways in which we can mitigate that risk through the actual deal stage itself. And I know we're kind of going slightly beyond marketing, but the important thing is this is all very aligned. So it's the same in marketing as it is in the sales process as well. If those aren't aligned, then you have a very, very confused audience, right?
Mm.
Because if you don't market the same way as you sell, then people don't really understand your company, right? Um, so when you work with somebody on a retained basis, it is more to do with what they can stop from happening in the future, right? Because your prospects are very kind of like focused on what's happening right now, okay? But until you say, well, what can happen is X, Y, and Z, and they go, my gosh, you know what? You're right, because this happened, 4 times last year, or etc. And when you illuminate how much of a cost that is to the business, it's like, by gosh, I really want to kind of keep that risk down. So what happens is employers are going to be prepared to pay you a little bit more so that it's a fixed fee, right? If something goes wrong, we've paid, that's as much as we're going to pay for it to happen. Okay.
Mm.
And it's the same when it comes to marketing as well. And I do kind of get a lot into the sales orientated side of things because, well, what is marketing without sales, right? So it's kind of fitting, I think, that we start with the sales and we work back the way. Okay.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
order to get to the point where we're actually going to sell, like I said before, is that it needs to make sense that what we're saying at the sales point is what has been built up to using the marketing journey. Okay. Because essentially, if you think about it, marketing and sales is just a different style of conversation. Okay. With sales, you're speaking one to one, often in a pitch environment, but then marketing, you're speaking one to many. Okay. Now you can sell without marketing, but the whole point of marketing is so that you can reach, um, you know, many prospects at the same time. So when it comes to actually speaking to them, they're informed about what it is that you do. They're inspired to take action, and they are inquisitive as to how you can help their business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the stage that it should be after the kind of marketing process. So the kind of first point in there of what can you do right now to really boost your marketing, and that's to clarify your message. I know that sounds really, really simple, but have you often tried to write down or tell somebody what it is that you do? And often it kind of becomes like this monologue of, it can be jargon, it can be ums and ahs and they just very quickly switch off and so forth, right? What's otherwise known on the tinterweb, the internet, whatever it is that you want to call it, is a knowledge vomit, right?
Yeah.
You just tell somebody about all the things that you know, and nobody's excited about that. So clarifying your message is the most important step, the thing that you can do right now. I think
Yeah.
Taisha has a question. I'm just seeing from the comments there.
Oh, yes. So do you think creating short 2 to 5 minute demonstrations of your service on social is recommended? So I suppose this is great and brings in a wider question around marketing, and then bringing in social marketing and different forms, and which forms you think are most effective. Obviously, Ty's mentioned there about the video demonstration, but I'm assuming there's a number of different ways that which you can reach a target audience. Would you say that that's a good way of going about it, Finn?
Yeah. So to give you a kind of higher level first, the most important thing isn't the actual content itself, it's the context behind it. Okay, so it's very important that you frame the context as in why this is useful and who this is useful to, right? Because if you just start showing like the internet what it is that you do, not a lot of people are going to get it. So you need something to hook them in, to engage them straight away. Okay. And that's like the first 2 to 5 seconds is probably more important than the 2 to 5 minutes of that content. Okay. So demonstrations, absolutely. I would always recommend showing people what you do as opposed to trying to tell them what you do. Okay. Because you can get a lot more across visually than you can through words, because conversations and information is linear in that it's stacked upon each other, right? What that means for the person on the other side is that you are going to be loading them with what we call brain calories, right? And we're kind of built to conserve brain calories on a daily basis, right? That's why when you get to a certain point of brain calorie consumption, some people switch it off because it just becomes too much to kind of take on board. So visual representations, visual frameworks, I totally recommend to demonstrate that in a short 2 to 5 minute video, making sure that you properly introduce what you're doing, and who it's for, and most importantly, why it's important to interact or to get involved with this kind of content.
Yeah, that I think that's great. And just to bring back your other point that you made, and we'll bring that into this point that Taisha's made as well. So when you said about making sure that you get your message right, you need to know what you're saying. I think just like you said, barking out a list of features of what it is you do for a living doesn't really serve any purpose. Your clients have heard it before, they'll switch off. And also, I just think you get a bit of that shoulder shrug, that so what? And if you want to differentiate yourself, but you're saying the same thing as everybody else, but actually using a different medium, I think, like you said, can be a way of standing out. But also, so when we do the training, one of the things we look at a lot is that emotion produces motion. That actually your clients are probably very comfortable using who they're using, doing their recruitment in the way that they're doing it. It doesn't mean that they think that it's perfect, but it's what they've got, and better the devil you know, and everything. So is there a way of us getting emotional, creating emotion with marketing? Because it's still sort of in sales, of course, you can ask questions in a sales call, you can have client meetings, but how do you get that across in marketing so that it creates a call to action with the clients?
That's a great question. I see it. This is the number one reason why most marketing fails, right? Is because people usually talk about themselves in a solution, kind of from a solution point of view, right? So they talk about their solution. Now, who is going to know what the solution is for without talking about the problem, right?
Yeah.
And see, when I was saying to Taisha, the first 2 to 5 seconds, that's maybe a great time to introduce the problem that this solution solves, right? Because there's something that happens here when you speak about the problems that your clients or your prospects have, is you're immediately locking into the conversation that's in their head, right? And I've had this kind of mentioned to me before, and one of our kind of really respected clients that we have on board, Howard, if you're watching this now, this is something he mentioned to me, which was, it sounded like you were in my head when I saw your marketing for the first time, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And that's the art of great marketing, is you're joining the conversation that's inside your prospect's head, which means You understand the problems that they have. You understand the problems that they're waking up with. Okay. If you mention that part first within your marketing, it's like, well, by gosh, I'm going to shut everything else off that I have to do this morning, and I'm actually going to watch this because this person knows not only what to do in this situation, but I don't feel alone anymore.
Mm.
Right. And that's how you engage somebody who's a complete stranger.
Yeah. And I love your comment there with Howard. Hello, Howard. I think he was watching. I should hope so, because he is transatlantic, and that's why we've moved the time. So if you aren't, then you must have a very good reason for it. So yeah, emotion produces motion. So we need to make sure that we've got that into our marketing. We have been asked this question before in one of these training sessions. How do we know what problems clients are having? And again, I think that's a really good point, because as recruiters, we sort of stand in our shoes, don't we, looking at the clients? We don't really stand in their shoes and consider, as a business, what are the challenges that a business faces within recruitment. So it is the attraction, it's the selection, it's the time, it's the overall cost, it's the attrition. There are lots and lots of problems that clients have. But I think one of the best ways to find out what problems typically your clients will go through is to ask them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So to actually ask your existing clients, what challenges do you face when you're recruiting? Because you'll know exactly what kind of content, and also, what content would you be interested in? You could use your existing clients as a bit of a litmus test, really, to see what would work in your industry. So you're not doing what you said there, which is just that misfire, not quite touching the target audience.
Yeah, and a great place that's not only the clients that you serve, but the clients that you're pitching to as well, because a lot of that is to do with, so the consultative element of pitching is that you're uncovering the problems that they have, right? And that's the problems they have in their own words. And that's fundamentally what you need to use. Okay. Now, there's a kind of good analogy when it comes to the kind of the misfire that happens when we're speaking a message, and the right person just doesn't get, it's basically the right person, wrong message type thing, right? And this is the thing, is that your clients or your prospects will speak about the problem at a very symptom level, right? They'll speak about it at the symptom level, whereas you understand how to solve it from the root level. Okay. You're a lot further ahead. So what happens is, when you speak about it from the root point of view, is you're actually missing the simplicity of the problem that's going on in their head, right? So we have the tendency to overcomplicate our message, because like we think, here is how you solve not just this problem, but the problem that occurs after that one, that one, that one, and that one as well, in this, huge kind of well-oiled machine that's designed to solve all of your problems, right? And this is the thing, is that people face problems and they get stuck with very simplistic, not simplistic problems, but simplistic language that's going on between their ears, right? Because the reason that people get stuck is because they're trying to tackle a problem using an old style of thinking, right? And often it's a mindset shift that's required in order to overcome that problem, because actually the overcoming of that problem might be very simple, but it's not when you don't have the right answer and you're just trying 1,000 different things as trial and error to try and get it right, right? That's where you really need to position yourself as the guide when it comes to your marketing, because the problems that that your clients or your prospects have are actually simplistic to communicate. The problem is we get lost in the solution, the solving of that problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all for prevention rather than cure. Heard a great phrase the other week, and do you know what? I still to this day don't know whose it was. And if I can't work out whose it was, then I'll probably just say it was mine as of next week onwards. But
That's what most
for argument's
marketers
sake,
do anyway.
well, yeah. Well, for argument's sake, so I heard this phrase that attrition begins with attraction, or attrition begins with acquisition. And I thought that's great. So then I made my own up, which is retention begins with recruitment. And that actually a lot of businesses that have underperformance, or have, for example, underperformance, have attrition problems, have motivational problems, or people who aren't cultural fits, look at interview processes. How many times have you interviewed someone who's not right for the role? How much time has that taken? So there are all of these are all problems. They're symptoms of a root cause. And that root cause is that they don't have multiple layers of scientific and objective assessment in place in the attraction and selection part of the process in order to mitigate and reduce a lot of these symptoms that are happening further down the process. And as recruiters, I think if you can start with marketing, if, like you said before, you've got to start with the end in mind. What is the solution you can provide? What are the problems that it solves? How can you convert that in a sales situation? But how can you start to get that out to your audience on a wide scale through your marketing? So you're right. You can't just send marketing out. You can't just do marketing, can you? It comes from somewhere deeper than that. One of the questions that we had in was about how do you then, so taking that and then reversing it back in the other direction, how do you go from marketing to conversion then? So where does marketing turn into sales and sales turns into clients?
Yeah. Okay. So there's two styles of selling basically, and one is the kind of pain orientation of selling, right? And that's kind of like the old style of, stick the knife in and twist it around a little bit and really make them feel the pain of not working with you, right? There's a different way of doing it, and I think it's a lot more effective. It's the style that I personally use, and that is a lot of people can't move forward because they are stuck within an element of confusion, right? So if you're able to take them into clarity, okay, i.e., they know there is a way forward, for example, right? And you've shown them that road. And back to what I was saying before, is you're positioning yourself as the guide, right? You're not positioning yourself as the hero, where it's like, I'm amazing. If you don't work with me, you're obviously not, cool enough or whatever, right? It's not the kind of popularity contest way of doing it, the high school mentality, right? It's that I'm going to partner with you, and first of all, I'm going to show you from the problem through to the solution how I do this with my other clients. Okay. If that works with you, that's great. If it doesn't, that's okay as well. I'm not being emotionally attached to the outcome, because that's another thing as well that I think trips a lot of people up, is to become emotionally attached to getting the sale, right? And that's when we say, okay, I'll just work with you in whatever terms that you tell me to, right? You become the order taker, right? And it is very difficult. Now, I will say this because it's the same for your clients as it is for you, is a lot of problems are created from short-term thinking, right? Versus a lot of solutions are created from long-term thinking, being able to see into the future, right? Now, when I'm pitching to somebody, or when one of our recruiters is pitching, when they're using iIntro, it's very much, this is how we prevent X, Y, and Z from happening, right? It's not, we're promising to stop X, Y, and Z from happening. Trust us, right? Which is very, very different. You're actually demonstrating how we do what it is that we do, right? And we're doing it in a way which is, we're not attached to, oh my gosh, somebody might steal the way of doing it, or et cetera, et cetera. Because the thing is nobody can emulate or replicate what it is that you do, right? As much as somebody will try, they can never replicate or emulate who you are and how you do it. And that's essentially what makes you you. That's why people work with you. That's why your best clients are your best clients, because it's actually you they're buying, not your service. Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's some food for thought for our viewers and listeners.
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, it is very simple. We talk about a 5-step sales process at iIntro that all of our clients use. So recruiters, recruitment business owners like yourselves listening today can go through in order to take their clients from touch to transaction, and then also how to manage and provide a really good service in real time so that it builds client advocacy and loyalty. But it does start with marketing. It starts with really good marketing and having really good methods and really good messages, and sending them at the right moments so that you can start to convert some of these clients. And you won't win them all, Finn, will you? I think, what you said before is becoming emotionally attached to the close, I think is really important, because marketing will attract them to you. You then decide if you want to work with them or not, if you feel that they are a business that you could work with. So it's very, very simple in its format, but also it is very complex because these are people that we're dealing with at the end of the day. On that note, there should be a ticker tape about to go across your screen. If you are interested in knowing more about what we do, if you want to speak to myself or Finn, please do book some time in with us. It's a free consultation. It's completely no obligation. And yeah, we're happy to give you some advice because we're both, card carrying advocates of revolutionizing the recruitment industry. Talking about which, so next week, Finn might be with us. You never know. He might decide he wants to stay because he loves it so much. But we might be joined by James O'Brien, who will be very brown. We'll be talking about how to build an unbreakable high-performance recruitment team. So what does a good recruiter look like, and has it evolved in the last 5 to 10 years? Definitely. We're going to talk about the art of attracting and recruiting recruiters and leaders using more than just gut feeling, which is essentially about 57% effective. And we're also going to talk about the psychology of high performance teams. So psychological safety, growth mindset, emotional intelligence. So there's lots for us to cover, Finn. Any sort of final words from you before we leave these good people to the rest of their day?
No, that's about it for me.
Fantastic. Well, Finn, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you for
Thanks for
keeping me
having me.
company. Half an hour of me, I don't think anybody would have enjoyed. But honestly, it's been a pleasure. I've learned things today as well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having us. And yes, we will see you all next week, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks from the Retained Recruiter Roadshow. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.